The recording has started. Okay. I actually don't know how to do a podcast style interview, or sorry, introduction, but it has been requested that we introduce this. So this is back in pairing. We are three GitLab team members just looking to discuss
Sometimes more.
code, connect, have some code therapy. Yeah, sometimes we are more than GitLab team members. We are also human beings and other things.
Perfect.
Um, Perfect. Okay, good. I'm glad I've got that out of the way. So today on our agenda, we have two things that people are interested in discussing. One is a refactor. This was some MR feedback that I got. And then the other, maybe we can do both. We can do reproducing CI builds locally with GDK and Docker. We could probably do two topics. So let me share my screen. And I just found the branch where I worked on this the other week. I actually started working on this by myself, and I thought to myself as I was working on it, this would be more fun with other people because I received this feedback and was thinking to myself, oh, I'll just, whip this refactor up, and then it took me a while. So here is the original feedback from Brian Williams. User is an omniscient class. It sure is. Could this logic be encapsulated somewhere else? And I said, great idea. I will do that separately 1 month ago. Have not done it yet. So started some work on this. I pointed you all to this flip commit. And so that method is called custom permission for. It's in the EE user model. And then, so I'm able to remove it here, which is super cool. That looks good so far. And because also, if you notice, we have custom permission before, but it's also calling these preloaded member roles classes. And I'm actually, as I'm talking about this, I'm kind of remembering where I got stuck. So that's good because before I was like, why did I stop working on this? But now I'm remembering. So we have this method that preloads these relationships. This is to prevent N+1 issues, which we discussed last week. And then we have the other one that does a preloader specifically for group relationships that prevents N+1s when there are groups. So I'm replacing these with a custom finder class. Custom abilities finder, it takes in a user, a list of resources, which could be groups or projects. And then just kind of shuffled that logic into this class, right? And so I got to this point and I realized that I had forgotten that we actually sometimes call this method previously defined down here on its own. Like we preload the relation, so we pass in a group, but then this method is always called for one resource um, because custom permission for is called in policy classes. So basically, say you're looking at a group of projects and we want to know if you have the ability to read all of those projects. We call the preloader to make sure that stuff's all cached in memory. And then there's an ability check on each one, and it actually just looks at the cache values from this method. So, any questions so
So
far?
did that, yeah, the places where you noticed preloaded member roles for projects is called on its own. Is it
Mm-hmm.
the result? Is anything done with the result, or is it then just called and then custom permissions for is called in some other capacity?
Yeah, good question. So let's look at somewhere it's called. It's only called in a few places actually. But so here we have this nice little module where we're doing a lot of different preloading. And this I was trying to call it in here. This is actually I like stopped mid-word for some reason. I must have been in a big rush. Couldn't finish whatever I was gonna say here. Resource ability or resources ability. So resources here would be projects. Uh, Okay. Oh, and here, yes, this is the rub. So in this context, we might be checking for a lot of different abilities on the project. So let's look at where this method is called. Prepare projects for rendering. It's called in various controllers that load lists of projects where we then make various calls on them. So this is a preloader for custom permissions. There's also one for max member access, which pulls the max access level. It's like a list of integers for the list of projects. What is this? Call to count my project? Just okay. So we're not doing, to answer your question, when we call this, we're not doing anything with the result. It's just calling it on the list to cache it before we start making like ability checks on each different
Yeah,
project. So
that feels very weird.
yeah,
Like that method of doing it. We're just going to call this because we know it has some side effect with safe request loader, and then we're not going to do anything with it. It's just yeah, yeah, that's kind of odd. It works,
yeah.
but it's odd.
Yes. And I remember when this logic was first added, there were discussions about like where else could we do this, right? Because it needs to be in a context where you know the preloading needs to happen. So like you don't want to call the preloader, for example, you're like, should we call it like in the config initializers or something? Like, is it like every time a request comes through, do we preload this? We don't really need it for every request, but we need it for many requests.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a new friend. Hi.
That oh hey.
Hello. We're discussing a refactor. Uh, so welcome to the show. It's not a show. uh, so
You made
Sam
it
was,
a show. Or
yeah,
Malcolm did.
okay. Malcolm. So Sam was saying that calling preload here, we're trying to refactor this method into like this finder or into something that's not on user so that we're not just adding one more method to the user class, which has, you know, thousands of methods probably. Sam was kind of questioning this approach in general of why are we calling a preloader in this method that is invoked in various controllers as a way of caching. And I agree, it's not ideal.
So if we just if we ignore philosophically why it's like this and just work through on the refactor maybe, and then we can come back to
Okay.
it might be that a better solution falls out of just trying to move it around, right? Sometimes that happens.
Yeah, true.
Okay. Yeah, I assume your new implementation, you're passing user into the new object.
The new object is defined here, and it
Yeah.
takes user, resources, and ability. Although it should be noted that the preloading class doesn't actually care about ability. It cares about user, and it cares about the resources, but it doesn't care about the ability because it preloads all of the abilities. So it feels to me like there are actually two classes here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like there's the custom abilities like preloader, which we already have that class. So this is where I started going down a refactor rabbit or like a spiral, like a why I'm wasting my time spiral, because it's like, well, this is already encapsulated in a class. All that's happening here is that we're wrapping it with safe request loader. So does that require its own class? Or like, what should the interface of this be, assuming that this method in some form needs to be publicly available to be called over here?
I mean, maybe we could implement that safe request load of part of the behavior onto that preloader class. So
just give it a flag.
We kind of flip it the other way so that you call the safe request load part from inside the preloader.
Okay. Let's look into that really quick. So user member roles in projects. Preloader. This is the preloader. So what you're saying is that we should take this logic and put it in execute or something?
I mean, you could we just make
You could add it with a flag.
Yeah, we could make execute take a block.
Okay, and then what would we do with the block? Like we say.
Oh, no, we don't need to do that. So we get a little bit hamstrung here. We get a bit hamstrung by this kind of object.execute kind of pattern, which we have all over the place, where it's like the object only has one thing that it does, right?
I've seen some places where we pass like a cache, where we pass a cache, or something like that. A flag.
Is this preloader thing used all over the place, or is it just used here?
It is only used in this method. I mean, it's tested separately, so it has unit tests, but it's only called here.
Yeah, well, I think that's fine then. Just make it handle its own.
And when you say make, I heard Sam say pass a flag. Do you mean something like this, Sam? Or...
Yeah, like this. Yeah, something like that, or maybe on initialize, not necessarily on execute.
Okay, like that. And then
usually we don't pass anything with the execute.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just kind of
I think it will need the resource key as well, won't it?
It would need the resource key.
Line 31.
Because, well, it has the user, so it could just
it has the user. It can build it with that. Yeah, we'd need that line in there for sure, but yeah.
So we do this, like resource key, throw that down there. Users already add a reader, so that's an available method. Yep. And so then up here.
And we don't need resource IDs because we're getting projects already in. It's an argument, right?
Exactly, yep. Projects are here.
Cool.
So then what do we do up here? In execute, we
we rename that one and then
wait, we rename what?
Yeah, we rename the method name and then we have like another execute. One is like with the safe request loader and one not. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you like my naming? Okay, so if
probably easier than to try to punch it into that huge method.
Yeah, good idea. So should we actually name this or should we can do it on that? So let's say if with safe request loader else so if with safe request loader we want to call this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Not execute. What a terrible method name. I really could not have thought of something worse. Okay. Like that. So if with safe request loader, and this will be by default false. So in our test should still pass for this class right now because they're just expecting this. Otherwise we pass all of that in there. This seems good.
Yeah, not execute should be private.
Good idea. I think there's another private down here. I'll just move that.
Yeah, there is.
There it is. Cool. Resource key down there. I mean, this method could probably be broken up a bit. It's big. There's also feedback on that MR about refactoring this logic, but we'll do that another time, another day. So who request? Okay, look, can we rename or not execute before? What should this be called?
What's it return?
It returns
member roles, right?
Yeah, it returns a hash basically of project IDs that point to the member roles that the user has for that.
So member roles grouped by project.
Let me actually look in the test to make sure that I'm having an accurate memory here. Yeah, so expected abilities, what does this look like? Oh, I see. Yeah, so it's the ID and then it maps to an array. So it's a hash. So you said member role, mapped member roles or what?
Well, member roles grouped by, I've forgotten already.
By project.
Project.
Well, it's actually abilities.
Okay.
Abilities or user project. Okay. Verbose, but clearer than not execute. Okay. That seems pretty good to me. So then in our Finder class, which I'll open locally, in here, instead of calling preloaded, we'll call just this, we'll call this class. And then, oh my gosh.
Just add the flag as a third parameter.
Great idea. I'm sure that would have, if I'd been alone, I would have been like, why is this working? If request loader true. And then I don't even remember.
We don't.
Oh, I see.
I don't think we need to pass anything anymore, do we?
So we do, because in this context of this Finder, what we're actually trying to do is access the hash itself. So we're looking inside of the preloaded attributes. And this is also like, we don't have to call this whole preloader. We could just call safe request loader if we had the resource key down here. What we're trying to do is like access the preloaded data according to this resource key. And then we pull it out based on the specific resource that we're looking at right now.
It doesn't take a resource there, does
I
it?
think the
So you just want.
Sorry, I missed that.
I think the execute method doesn't take any params, or did we just change it?
You just need the parenthesis removed, I think, because it will return a hash, right?
It returns a hash, exactly. Yeah. So we're oh yeah, you're right. So we just want this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're right.
I pretty much always do a fetch instead of just a call like that. I don't know whether we're safe to do that here or whether we want to do that.
The good
depends
question.
on what returns. Can it return nulls or?
Could it return nulls? I don't think so. It should return just the project ID pointing to an empty array if there are no custom abilities. So it would still be there. So you want to do like fetch.
That's what I would do by default.
Okay.
But you need the safe navigator there for this to actually be more safe, sort of thing.
Which part would you put the safe navigator on resource.id or on fetch?
On the like, why would you do fetch? Is I guess because you can add the ampersand before the, so like if you would think that execute can return nulls, right? You would put a safe navigator there and do fetch instead of the brackets, because for the brackets, I don't think you can do safe navigation for the brackets, right?
You can, but it's weird syntax.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd have to do ampersand, open, close, square bracket, and then a parameter, and then
Oh
it's
yeah.
so
Yeah,
weird. It looks very
Yeah.
weird. You can do it, but it looks but ugly. Yeah, and then parents. Yes, yeah,
Oh wow.
that's how it would look. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. Okay,
Nope.
so I think what's being said, well, I think we wouldn't call fetch if we were not confident that there would be a value, right? Like there'd be no point in using, the point of fetch is that you kind of want to raise if there's no data, because you would always expect
yeah,
data.
for me, I always use it because you get a meaningful error at the point where the error occurs, rather than somewhere up the stack. The code saying nil does not respond to blah, which is normally what happens, and you're left scratching your head about where the actual problem was.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be successful in this case.
I mean, we can look at the member roles projects preloader, see if it would even return a nil. Do we have situations where it would?
Yeah, I don't think we do. I don't think we would expect that, based on my memory of writing this code a while ago. See, when it returns an empty value, right? So when the membership has no custom role, project ID would still be there. It just points to a nil value, which is fine because we're just calling fetch on. We'd still get an empty array with fetch. So I think this works without the safe navigator.
I mean, we can always cover that in specs, right?
Yeah.
And see.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Okay. Okay, so we can delete this because we just refactored that. The group is going to have to be another class. There's also a discussion to be had about whether we could consolidate. But for now, let's just worry about project. So this is cool. We have safe request loader being called in here, which is great. I don't have a unit test yet for custom abilities finder. But let me just run. Do you mind if I'm just going to run this preloader unit test really quick to make sure we didn't like break the interface of the class. It should just be a straight refactor at this point. No.
You need to do that that controller concern as well, right? The one that was calling current user dot.
Yes, we have to change out the other places where was it? The place where I stopped typing mid-word. It's a huge rush. It's like really chaotic. Okay, come on. I've been doing stuff on GDK all day. Should be like warmed up and ready to go. Thinking.
It's all right, we edit this out of the show.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry to all of our many listeners. Exactly. I love
the
how on
YouTube
every
hack is to press L to skip forward 15 seconds.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Lowercase L, or you have to capitalize?
Oh, you can just press it. It's like kind of like the Vim keys.
What? They've got Vim bindings on YouTube. That's amazing.
Kind of.
Well, it's good. We didn't break anything.
K stops him and does play pause. J jumps back and L skips forward.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I use Vim key bindings in Gmail web, which is cool. I think you might have to enable that like in your settings, but I do it. So that does HJK, or well, J and K really. And then enter for open. And then E for archive. Okay, so what did we do here?
Did you
I
make an
didn't.
outer reader?
No, I didn't. Where are you? This guy. What is it called again?
With
photo?
Control B.
With something. Okay, cool. Let's run it one more time. This time faster. And hopefully it will work. Hopefully it will work. Oh, that's good. Didn't say anything about spring. Spring starting up. Wow, it's beautiful. Okay. So this still works, hopefully. And now in here, we are going to, so here we're not going to be calling this method anymore. Instead, we're actually going to be calling the preloader itself, right?
Yep.
So just call this. That's kind of a mouthful, or it's many lines. So we're calling preloader, and then we don't need to pull out the resource ID, or we don't need to call fetch even, right? Because we're just trying to do a preload here. So we're taking the full collection of projects. I think this is current user.
I think you
right?
might have deleted an extra line by mistake. Or did you want to get rid of custom abilities finder?
I do, because custom abilities
yeah.
finder is just for finding like one custom ability, not for the whole preload.
Yeah.
So we're done with that. This needs to be current user. And then we don't want to call fetch anymore. So this should be fine. Okay, I mean, having to call this, it seems like this should like maybe be the default instead. That's right. Like it's just, we don't have to
If it's the only
it.
place we're using it, then, and if it's the whole purpose for this class,
it is the whole purpose for this
then
class.
why even have an argument for it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like we have some tests somewhere. I think they were in the method. So there were this safe request loader business was previously in this method. I think the unit tests for this method, did I delete those yet? No. Let's look for those because I think that they do test that the safe request loader is being called on line 2772. Okay, so here for this, it's actually, oh, here, yeah. So there's some tests that ensure that if we call it twice, basically, we don't make any queries. So we can do that in our unit tests for the preloader. So I say let's remove this argument and just always use that. I don't know why I thought we had to do it only sometimes. I guess it was just felt safer at the time. Get rid of let's safe request loader, and then getting rid of all the logic related with safe request loader being optional. Great. Let's run those tests one more time. Sorry, folks. Just I keep thinking I'm breaking everything because I'm deleting code typically. Does anyone hear you? What is the thing that it runs your tests like every time you make a change and save?
guard.
What is it? Lard?
Bundle exec guard.
Guard. Does anyone use that?
Here? Yeah. Yeah, I use that most of the time.
Like, should I be using that?
I mean, it's quite convenient. Yeah. Usually.
But it runs it every time. I've used it before, but I can't remember. Does it run it in a separate window every time so it's not interrupting you constantly?
Yeah, I keep it like in a different tab on my terminal and then just run it there. And then it just every time it detects a file change for a certain spec file to run it.
Okay, that's cool.
It's just good to remember to quit the process before you switch branches. Otherwise, like when you pull master or something, there will be so many spec changes that'll keep your laptop running the whole day.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Because it'll, like most of the test suite will run again. Heard the rumor it takes over a week to run on a local laptop.
The test suite?
The full test suite, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is a total side note, but like it is interesting. I wonder how many people run tests locally at all. I get the impression that some developers at GitLab like never run tests locally. They just let CI do it always, even if it's like a unit test. I think if they have like GDK problems, mostly probably.
I don't have that much confidence in my commits that that seems like a long feedback loop.
Yeah. But I guess if you're not writing a lot of backend code, maybe you don't want to have to make sure that your database is like in order and everything. You just want to like commit and push.
Yeah, that might be.
So we broke 3 things, which is kind of weird. I always look at when everything's broken because it usually means it's going to be easy.
Expected nothing and got something.
Something about skipping preload.
Oh, it's probably because the data has already been preloaded and cached, right? So this test on line 36, I'm guessing if we run it on its own, it will pass. But when it's run after another test, there's already data.
I'll give it a try.
Yeah, let's run it on its own.
That's a shared example though, right?
Is it a shared example? I honestly didn't even look. Sorry, I like ran it.
I think that's what it was, but
okay,
yeah.
So maybe it will. Oh, you're right. So it will always be running. It will. Well,
yeah, you'll need to check where it is called from.
Okay.
Can you open the spec failures again?
Yeah. Well, this is so the spec failures are up here, and so there's 3 failures. So
yeah, so you have line 134. Line 134 in the spec. Yeah, the one that is grayed out. Shared example is being called. So right above the line 36.
Oh my gosh, wait. I don't know if I knew that line. I think that's always been there and I've never seen it before.
That's where it is called.
Too little contrast.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, solarized. I hate you. Okay, 134. Wow. This has been a huge day just based on that learning alone. Okay, so 134. Okay. So it's calling it for each of these, the shared example. I mean, this is a terrible name for a shared example. I probably named it. It behaves like custom roles read code. So it's going through each of these and
yeah, and for each one of these ones, that specific example is failing. So I guess within the shared example, we need to look at, is there anything that is running before that, or let abilities skips preload. Member role.
It's supposed to skip preload when we don't have the license feature for it enabled. Is that what I'm reading correctly?
Is that what's failing?
It's expecting it to be empty, but it
is
so it was previously doing the license check before preloading.
Where is I don't even know where the license check is. There's no license check in here.
You just check your diff to see if it's been removed from somewhere.
Okay. So these are the changes to the preloader itself.
Is this your branch that you'd already done some work on, Jesse, or was it?
It is. It is my branch I've done some work on. But I don't think, let me navigate this more intelligently. That wasn't right. Out of these changed files, I hadn't changed the preloader yet before this, so these should be the only changes to the preloader. I feel like...
Were there any skips?
Were there any skips?
Like, were there any like next if or in the previous implementation?
Well, in here there is next unless project custom roles enabled, which that method looks for the license. So that I guess it is happening there. But maybe what's happening, see how shared examples for custom roles has 2 context blocks? The next one stubs the license to be true. So maybe when request store, like, let me just turn off safe request loader and rerun this. I think it will pass. I think what's happening is safe request loader is caching the value from...
I'd only expect to see 2 failures though. We had 3, didn't we?
This shared example is used for 3 times.
And I think we had 3 failures.
Yeah, for each of the examples. You can comment out some of these as well, so you'll just investigate one.
Yeah, okay. So comment out 2 of these, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, Malcolm, to answer your question, well, let's run this, but also I think what's going on with this shared example, there's 2 context blocks, and like they don't necessarily run in this order, right? They could run in any order.
Yeah.
So it's possible that this one runs first, this value gets cached, and then this one runs, and so this fails the first time.
Yeah, okay.
But let's see. Let's just run this. We'll see, because if there's 1 failure and 1 passing, then we know the other one has run the other context.
Do we have to add a flag when we have safe request loaders and specs to make them work properly?
Okay. We do
So
if
this
we're
because we commented out the safe caching, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's uncomment that.
Yeah.
Good call. Too many changes at once. That's always a challenge. Save. Run it again. There is a flag to have safe requests for loader work properly. That came up last week in the N+1 discussion. We had some N+1 specs that worked very differently when safe request loader was enabled in the test environment. But in this scenario, I would expect that to be in our favor because we don't want things to be cached. We don't want safe request loader to be working. Okay, so
well, it is working. That's the problem.
Why is it working then?
I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, if we don't have the flag, does it not clear it between specs, and that's why this is failing? Like, that's what I'm trying to. Maybe that was the meta under the meta question I was asking.
Yeah. I don't know. Seems very mysterious, and it's also failing as the first test. So
yeah,
what gives? Okay.
So can we go maybe drop a debugger into the point where the license check was?
Yeah, good idea. So that happens here. Custom roles enabled. Do you think we should have the debugger right before that?
And then just see what it says on each iteration.
A lot of debugger calls.
Yeah.
Oh, we won't have that much projects, but yeah.
Hopefully not.
Oh yeah.
Create list 100.
Yeah.
Okay. So it should be false.
files. So that should go next. Yep.
True. What? This project.
This is on the next spec, so we've just
Okay.
had, we had our failure up there.
We already had our failure. Okay, so it should have gone next.
So
We don't need to worry about all these. So why is this this should be empty, right?
should
On the
be.
first test. So it should just return that. Let's run this one more time with the binding up there.
Do we even get there? The next
Yeah, so just it skips
out,
to the
right?
next item in the iteration. Doesn't
Yeah.
break.
Yeah, it just goes net. Yeah, so there should be, I think there might only be one project, I'm not sure. So it's empty. Make sure, true. So it should just return.
What?
Wow. And it is, if you look at the failure, it is returning. Oh no. What is happening?
We just see the line of the failure again. So where does what's result? No line.
On line, what's in there on line 36?
32. Oh yeah, that one. Oh,
What's
that's
the
result? Result is a magic let or something.
Result is a magic let. Never.
Yeah, it's true. I know how much you love them from the discussion the other week.
Okay, so it's calling describe class.new, passing in projects, which is a list of projects, or it's actually just one project and a user, and then it's calling execute. So one question I have, maybe safe request loader. I mean, it clearly has to do with safe request loader because it passes without safe request loader.
They only be cached inside one request, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't, yeah, it should just be for one. But also request store isn't even called here, so it shouldn't be caching it. But I wonder if safe request loader returns, like we comment this line out. I'm really curious if this fails in the exact same way. Like is just calling safe request loader returning, having a return value. Oh, good, they all fail. Okay, never mind.
How many notes? Just return an empty array there then.
Just for an empty or like, well, I think it wants
a
this.
hash, yeah, empty hash.
So this is what you expect to return. So let's just explicitly return empty hash. That's a good idea. Run the test again. Let's see what safe request loader does with it.
There could be, I doubt it though, but there might be a rule to enable the safe request loader mode on all of the specs within that directory.
Mm-hmm.
So they might not lead the metadata. flag on them to do.
So for the first failure, it expected it's save request loader. Because we expect the result to be empty hash. This is the failure we're getting when we even run our query. But if all you do is pass an empty hash to save request loader, it gives you this back. So
where's that pulling it from now? If we never return that actual value,
I think it's got to be this,
that's
right?
weird.
That's pulling the project ID.
So below line 17, can you create a local variable called return value or something? Just say equals nil, whatever. Yep.
Okay.
And then assign it on line 24.
Okay. Assign it to what?
Equals abilities for user group blah blah. So uncomment the line above and assign it to that. Yeah.
Okay.
And then return it on below line 25. No, outside the block. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Run the test again.
Because maybe the safe request loader execute doesn't actually return the value of the block that you pass it. It returns something else, I reckon.
Okay. And let me use, what is it? Focus?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, but it's before the do, but I'm not sure if it works for share examples, but I mean, let's try it out.
Okay, let's see. So let's trying to use what I learned last week. So it's not about test ordering, we know that. It's to do with safe request loader behaving differently than, I thought it would just be like a no op if requester wasn't enabled. Well, there you go.
So basically, yeah, the request loader doesn't return.
What does it return?
Somehow something in it.
It returns
resource data.
What is resource data? An adder reader. Why? Why?
Empty, then it does a load resource data, and I'm guessing it populates it there, and then
it's a fetch is with the resource key. How's fetch?
Yeah, there is nothing cached, so I guess it's nil. Returns nil probably.
It's no, well, but it is returning the ID of the project, right? That's why the test is failing, because it's returning the ID of the project. And then where is it? This. It's returning 34 and pointing to nil when we expect.
Which I guess is what that safe request fetch call does. Safe request store dot fetch probably returns. Oh wait, sorry, I can't see that. Line resource data.
So should we look at safe request store?
How deep's the rabbit hole go?
Fetch. Oh my gosh. These methods will run against null store if request store is enabled. But what if request store isn't enabled? Then what happens? Oh, if request store is disabled, so it calls null store. Yeah. So what is null store? Okay, what is null store? Where's fetch? Oh my gosh. Okay. So it just yields the block. So if fetch is called on safe request store, I'm trying to remember where we've been, then it just yields the block. So yeah, in the block passed in is a hash, wasn't it? Let's see, request loader. Yep, it's just resource data, which is something. What is resource data? It starts as an empty hash.
Yeah,
really confusing.
Then it does update resource data on the block.
Where does that happen?
Line 40, I think it was.
Line 40?
Yeah, there.
Update resource data. Oh, if it's missing. So,
merges with reloaded.
like calling merge bang on anything is like a red flag. I don't know.
It has the CSS.
Mark absent values. Go on.
Yeah, so as resource IDs, we pass the project ID, right? So then it merges resource IDs minus resource data. That is nothing. So we keep the resource ID.
Yeah. We have then we have the ID with a default value, and that's probably the nil. Yeah. Like on line 51. That's probably where we're creating that ID that we're seeing with the empty value with the nil in it. And then it just puts that in there.
What is this _1?
I think it means it's just not used. Or is it the first?
I think it's like, first argument. I'm not sure. I only saw it for the first time the other day. I think it's like implicit.
Because you can't name, I guess with Ruby, you can start a variable name with underscore. Like this could be like anything, or is one some special thing? Like underscore usually means unused.
It's a new Ruby feature from Ruby 2.7, numbered parameters.
Oh really? I thought you were joking.
No.
Okay.
If you have a simple block with positional arguments, you can do the following, and then okay, you can just one is the first parameter to the block function. Okay. So it's just the first argument, and then that would be that to the resource mapping. Let's see, resource IDs minus resource data keys. 2H. Yeah, magic methods don't really help making things clear, do they?
No. So that's being passed to 2H, which is when you pass a block to the hash, does that set the default value for the hash? Is that what's happening there?
It must be. I honestly, like, this is so confusing.
We define default value as an attribute. Yeah. So it's nil if you don't pass anything for the.
So it could be nil. So hold on, let me just do this in a console really.
So we get passed some IDs and safe request loader, and then it tries to find it. And if it can't find it, it populates it with the default value also passing, which we usually leave empty, and that's nil. That would confirm what we're seeing in the specs, right?
Okay, so default value is nil. Yeah, I mean, it seems clear that this is where the code's coming from. I'm just like truly. So if so keys would be a hash, right? So it'd be like 1, 2, and then
an array, you mean?
An array, sorry, yeah. So if we take 1, 2,
you need
1,
something
2, 3
in the first array that is not in the second to get. So it's basically the result of this operation populated with the default value as a hash.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is exactly what we're getting in the specs where we don't expect it.
Exactly. Okay. Well,
previously worked, but now we're having a safe request loader.
Now we're having a safe request loader.
Added
So
in the mix,
maybe,
and that's
maybe this means, sorry, we're at the end of our time, so I should make sure you wrap up on time. But I think what I'm going to do moving forward, this is super helpful, is either just update the specs here, or I guess I have to think about what I need to do, because I can't remember the significance of why we need a license check to make sure that data isn't returned. But that might be important to check for. So I understand
some
now.
Investigation.
Yeah, some investigation. But cool, this was awesome. Thanks, everyone.
And this concludes our first episode of Code Therapy Podcast.
Code Therapy Podcast. Thanks for joining. I look forward to seeing you all next week. There are things on the dock if you want to work on them. Yeah, appreciate it. Bye.
See you later.
Have a good one. Bye.